Here is our host, Tian.
Hello and welcome to World Insight special program, Alaska Calling. I'm Tian in Beijing. Top diplomats from China and the U.S. wrap up their high-level strategic dialogue in Alaska, Anchorage. What began with both delegations trading barbs gradually ended with a range of agreements on common ground. Both sides agreed to cooperate on climate change, regional and other hotspot areas. Chinese top diplomat Yang Jiechi and U.S. Secretary of State Blinken commended the talks as frank and constructive behind closed doors. To discuss the highly charged atmosphere in Anchorage, I spoke to Li Cheng, director at the joint Thornton China Center at the Brookings Institution. In Washington, D.C., Cheng Li, director and senior fellow at the joint Thornton China Center with the Brookings Institution. There are diverse assessments about exactly what is the results of the Anchorage meeting. What about your take?
Well, it's both, because the outcome, the closed-door meeting actually went relatively well, and there's some deliverables. But we first need to, the reason behind the beginning. Now, first of all, it's very, very difficult because the new administration is only in power for 2 months. And they're still in the search of a grand strategy. Now, even these people are kind of well-trained diplomats, but still, diplomacy is sometimes difficult. Now, develop a grand strategy is not easy at all. Now, we need to, number one, to have an accurate understanding of your competitor. Apparently, there's some misunderstanding, at least from U.S. side, in terms of their calculation of Chinese position. And also to be clear about one's own objective and the ways and the means to reach this objective. And also should have set of priorities and not make too many enemies. But you look at the foreign policy in the past 2 months, there's so many tensions with Russia, with China, with North Korea, with Iran, with Syria, and now also the border issues with Mexico and South America. Now also, of course, the coalition building is the right approach from U.S. perspective. But at the same time, as the diplomatic, you do also need your other parties' demand and the concern. You should not expect a total victory. And also, finally, you should develop a mechanism to avoid catastrophic scenarios. But unfortunately, I think that the new administration, the team, is still very much under the shadow of the previous administration. They still need to work out the delicate balance between competition and the confrontation. You know, as the Biden administration claims that Washington should seek cooperation with Beijing where national interests overlap. Now, this is a good statement, but you do see some tensions between what happened and what they try to achieve.
What you have just said, Dr. Li, very much a great point. You mentioned about how the new administration top diplomat will be able to walk out of the shadow of the earlier Trump era approach. Now, given the domestic politics, what's likely to be the timeline?
Now, this is a very good question. And the conventional wisdom holds that there's a bipartisanship, consensus in the U.S. supports the strategic rivalry between China and the United States. But then if you look at the local leaders, whether state leader or municipal leaders, it's a different picture. It's a different kind of bipartisan consensus. It's really want to engage with China because they think that it's very important to help the local economy. Education and cultural ties with China should maintain, and they spend a tremendous effort, many, many years or decades. Now, also, as the Chinese leaders mentioned, there's a 50 state, sister state province partnership and more than 200 sister cities. Like, actually also state governments in the United States have set up 27 representative offices in China, more than in any other country. So it's a different picture. The political consensus, we need to be careful. I hope the new administration will look at this aspect as well. Now, some other important interest group in the United States, for example, medical and public health communities, educational institutions, Wall Street, and the business firm will still largely support improve U.S.-China relations. Yes, on the Capitol Hill, there's some kind of consensus, want to be tough on China, and that's still not still very much the case. But the local level, it's a different picture. Now, in terms of COVID-19, despite this lack of government kind of cooperation, sadly, over the past year, and there's tremendous cooperation in the medical professions and scientists, in terms of the data sharing and and also appear on each other's webinars and publish things together, and also, most importantly, join the research on prevention, vaccine development, and the drug treatment. So there's a foundation, positive foundation there. This reminds me that the leaders should not just look at the public opinion poll, because it will change.
Right.
So there's someone said, a politician thinks of the next election, but a statesman thinks of the next generation. I hope that the new administration will have the long-term strategic thinking.
Right.
What is the best interest? They talk about the serve American interest. There's nothing wrong with serve American interest. Of course, diplomacy strategy, each country will put the priority on serving your own interest. But should we look the long term, and also should avoid some of the stepstones,
right.
missteps.
Very well said. Since you use a quote coming from a statesman, I also have one to share with you and our audience. I remember Winston Churchill said very clearly, if you quarrel about the past and the present, it's very likely you're going to lose the future. Many have been asking that question, watching the fiery start round of China-U.S. Anchorage talk, and thinking, is that how diplomacy will be done between China and the United States? Of course, later 2 rounds may be different behind the closed door. We don't know. But then it also is a question as to what kind of examples does China and the United States together set for the rest of the world? I mean, after all, these are the 2 largest economies in the world. People are watching this very closely. They want to get a clue about where the world is moving toward, and this is what we got. So, Dr. Li, what do you think? The styles of diplomacy, will that be the precedence likely between China and the United States?
Well, first of all, I think that we should not jump to the conclusion to believe the new administration, the new team will be really similar to the previous team, or even tougher on China, or even more ideological. This is not accurate. I think that we should first to make very clear, because if you think that way, you will lose the opportunity.
Okay.
The same things on the U.S. side, they may also lose the opportunity. Now let's look at the difference between Trump administration and the current administration. Trump administration, at least from Beijing's perspective, you cannot say that the perspective is wrong, is sought to defeat and destroy China in much the same way that the United States, defeated the Soviet Union in the Cold War. Now there's 3 areas of evidence. But you look at this administration, they did not touch any of these 3. They want to cooperate with China in certain areas. They did not talk about the overthrow the Communist Party. They did not talk about Taiwan's independence, support Taiwan's independence. Actually, there's a line, according to Chinese release, that affirm that the one China policy.
Right.
Now, if that's the case, completely different approach.
Okay. Dr. Cheng Li, Director and Senior Fellow at the Thornton China Center with the Brookings Institution. As always, thank you so much, sir. The Anchorage meeting was the first opportunity for the new Biden administration to get acquainted with the veteran diplomats from China. There was hope that the Biden team would offer a departure from the Trump legacy and consider a reset in China-U.S. ties, but the Anchorage talks proved that this was still elusive. I dig deeper into the trajectory of bilateral ties in my segment, Wait the World. Take a look.